So it seems the single biggest Necron model might have been removed from the web store. Games Workshop has a rather big terrain release with the Sector Imperialis returning. The made-to-order Space Marines seem very pricey, the Vallejo paint brand looks like it's in trouble, and there's some fun new Crossfire Rules for the Genestealer cults. Let's do a roundup of a whole bunch of Warhammer related news. Hello and welcome back to Allspec Tactics, where today I thought we'd do a quick news roundup video, talking through a whole bunch of things that I found interesting over the past few days that probably didn't need an entire video all to themselves. First up, it looks like there could be slightly bad news for Necron armies out there, as it appears that their big shiny Forge World thing, the Seraptek Heavy Construct, has gone away from the Forge World web store, and Games Workshop don't seem to be particularly certain about whether or not it's ever going to come back. 10th edition really does seem to have been the phase out of Forge World from mainstream Warhammer 40k for the most part, seeming like their resin miniatures are going to be aimed at all the other settings but not their flagship game. And currently the only exceptions to that are the Forge World models for the Custodians and the Knights, who look like they're probably going to be replaced by plastic kits sometime in the medium to long term, and certain really big Titanic units, things like Titans and enormous flyers. Last year, basically the entirety of the Necron Forge World range, besides the Seraptek Heavy Construct, went into Legends. They'd been winding them down gradually, but the last few survivors went away. It seemed that this great big stalking bug thing had gotten the pass due to it being a massive great big Titanic unit, so not something that would ever likely be replaced in plastic, and seemed to be a good fit for Forge World as a massive luxury centerpiece for those who wanted one. Now though, it looks like the Seraptek has just basically disappeared from the web store completely, which maybe is a bit more cause for concern compared with some of the other models out there. Usually with Forge World models, if they're still making them, but they're just not currently on sale because they've got a backlog or something, then they usually mark them as temporarily out of stock, rather than just take them down so you can't search them or anything. I had this post shared to me on the Allspec Tactics Discord server the other day, where it looks like someone's asked Games Workshop as to the fate of the miniature and then posted it up on Reddit, and apparently this was their email response. Apparently the response was that the Seraptek Heavy Construct has been discontinued and there's no plans for it to return in the near future. It's possible it could return at some point in the further future, but we have no information about this. Otherwise they would pass the request on to the product development team and say that hopefully there'd be some sort of replacement or similar scale vehicle for the Necrons in the not too distant future. Though I feel like that's more sort of maybe that might happen if there's a Necron release, as opposed to any sort of cryptic hint. It does seem to be fairly bad news for the Seraptek though, as they actually use the phrase discontinued as opposed to just out of stock or some sort of problem with the mold. Seems like it is gone in the near term. As a result, if he's not Legends at the moment, it seems like there's at least a good chance that he could go to Legends at some point in the not too distant future. That seems kind of inevitable, at least in the long term, if he goes away for good and doesn't come back. I guess it's not impossible that he could return at some stage though. I feel like some of the bigger Forge World models have had some things where they've been in and out of stock a few times, sometimes because there might be some sort of technical production with their mold or something. The Warbringer Nemesis Titan is another one that's mysteriously vanished, and no indication of when that's going to be back. Still though, not exactly great news for Necron players. The vast majority of collectors won't either own one of these or have particular plans to collect one, though I still think it's just kind of cool that they have these great big Forge World models out there. I feel like these great big Titan class miniatures have a whole load of fun factor, even if they don't seem to be a massive focus from Games Workshop at the moment. Next up, Games Workshop announced a Christmas terrain release. It looks like it's the return of the Sector Imperialis terrain to Warhammer 40k. This was the announcement on their Sunday reveal article in place of normal pre-orders, which usually take a backseat over the Christmas period. As with the Space Marine releases that are currently ongoing and we'll get to in just a second, these ones are some of their made-to-order ones, so the idea is that you place the orders with Games Workshop within the time frame, and then they'll spin up the molds and make the plastic, make the number that people actually want, and then ship them out sometime within the next 180 days. I think it can be kind of variable as to whether it's sooner or later within that period. The Sector Imperialis ruins will be on pre-order between the 25th of December, so Christmas Day, and Monday the 6th of January. Pretty much there for the full 12 days of Christmas then. As made-to-order releases go, I feel like this one will be a much more popular one than some of the ones that they've done. For some reason, Games Workshop don't seem to keep permanent stock of Warhammer 40k ruin terrain, which does seem a little bit on the weird side to me, just as you see it on so many battlefields out there, and they had multiple big runs of terrain that were in permanent stock in the past. Currently they do have a few options that are sort of ruin-like, but a lot of their stuff is the more sort of Battlezone Frontierist type stuff. In general, the terrain pieces are considered really quite nice ones, but because it's Games Workshop, they're going to be absolutely eye-wateringly expensive compared with other offerings, I'm sure. We won't know the prices for these until they actually go up for pre-order, so I guess that would be Christmas Day for the news there. Probably not the most good news though. In any case, looking through the actual pieces on offer, there's the Sanctum terrain piece with a whole bunch of Imperial Saints or something, I presume, lining the columns of a bombed out cathedral. The Imperialis sector ruins, maybe some slightly more standard ruin terrain pieces there with fairly gothic arched windows. Then there's the Manufactorum type piece, a bit of an old manufactory I suppose for the Abmech, a Basilicanum again with some fairly cool statues, and then a whole bunch of the Sector Imperialis objective markers. Kind of fun little bits if you wanted something to mount on your counters for something a bit more thematic in game maybe. In any case, let me know what you make of them. Would you be tempted to pick up some of these at the right price? It seems that they were fairly good targets for a made-to-order terrain release. It does seem that there's a few people who were hoping that they'd come back at some stage. It'd be pretty cool if they did have some more terrain pieces and slightly more permanent stock. I feel that online discussion often seems to be that it's both bulky in terms of boxes and sort of low sellers compared with other things for Games Workshop, so they don't like to have too much of it, even at the prices that they charge for it. Beyond the Sector Imperialis stuff coming up, we also have the prices for this week's made-to-order Marines as well. These ones went live on Saturday for a 1 week period of pre-orders, and again these will be up for their 180-day made-to-order type thing. That's the same sort of way as the upcoming terrain. For these ones we got two different offerings of Firstborn Marines, the Space Marine Company Command for £77.50, $125 or €100. It seems that was the final price for these ones, getting you a Firstborn Chaplain, Captain and Librarian, and then a Command Squad. Looking at some rough numbers, they previously had the Command Squad bundled in with the Captain as a unit called Company Command. That was $60, and I believe the Librarian and Chaplain were $35 each when they were on sale, which is at least kind of in line with other smaller character prices. I guess putting those together in theory Games Workshop might have sold them for around about $135, though in reality, given that they've had a price rise since then, it might have been more like $140 or $145. But whichever way you slice it, it doesn't really look like it's that much discount if it's only going down to $125. And just more on the face of it, I feel like this set of Firstborn Marines for that price just don't have a lot of people looking at it and being very tempted. Even if you make allowances for Games Workshop's enormous character tax, it still doesn't really feel like a particularly good deal, and perhaps more so for older Firstborn sculpts. I feel like the three characters are nice enough, that the Command Squad is a fair bit of an older kit, definitely has a more classic retro sort of appeal, but for these ones it very much does feel like they're selling older miniatures but at prices that are just as bad as Primaris. Out of the two sets, I was expecting the Heroes of the First Company to be the more popular one. I did a quick channel poll as well to ask what people actually bought out of them. It seems that out of channel respondees, 4% of people bought these guys, 1% got the Company Command one, and 1% got both. Kind of shows that they're both really quite niche appeal though. In any case, it seems that these 10 unique Terminator sculpts are £65, €85 or $110, which I think still feels pretty expensive. These guys are basically the Space Marine heroes from a previous edition, coming from around about 6 years or so ago I think. Scale-wise, they were a little bit bigger than the old Firstborn Terminators, but still far closer to them versus the new upscaled ones that we got for 10th edition. Either way, they both feel like slightly luxury items for people who want the sculpts more as hobbying projects, I guess more so than gaming. I guess you could use these guys as various combinations of Terminators in games still. I guess you could have a go at fielding them as a Deathwatch Terminator datasheet as well potentially. The pricing of them maybe doesn't feel quite as terrible as the Company Command one does. Current Terminators are £42.50 or $65, so getting twice the Terminators for 1.5 times the price maybe doesn't feel as awful as some of Games Workshop's other ones, even if they definitely won't appeal to everyone. Moving beyond Games Workshop for a second, one thing that I thought I'd just quickly mention that was shared to me on the channel's Discord as well, was that the painting and modelling supplies brand Vallejo seems to be in trouble, which definitely feels like it's one of the popular ones that lots of people out there prefer to Games Workshop's offerings. There are plenty of other ones on offer too though these days. I can't say I know the full details and the ins and outs of the story, but going by a bunch of general vibes and hearsay, it sounds like some sort of private equity company has taken over the paint brand, presumably buying them out. If that's true, then it sounds like they're doing what private equity companies do and try and squeeze the maximum amount of profit out of the thing that they've just bought, and seem to be not treating the factory workers very well, not paying them fairly or respecting demands for safety measures for the chemical exposure that you get around paints. So currently the factory is shut down with a bunch of strikes. As a result, paint supplies are likely to be very disrupted. I'm probably kind of wrong or missing details on a bunch of those points, so feel free to correct me or give me any other updates down in the comments, but that sounds like it's the general gist of it. So hopefully for everyone's sake they managed to get round the table and get the workers a fair deal. Back to Games Workshop things though, and another recent 40k release was a White Dwarf content for Genestealer cults. It looks like White Dwarf 507 could be of some interest to some scions of the Four-Armed Emperor. It looks like the content for them has a whole bunch of interesting stuff. They've got a cool army showcase with a fairly spectacular collection being shown off, a large lore section of Gene Stealer Cult exploits in the Charath Expanse, which is the whole current narrative setting involving the Great Gun and the Kill Team campaign and the grand narrative event and things. And then as well as that, they've got a Crusade rules section. One thing that caught my eye was the fact that they've got the rules for Crossfire returning, but also have a great big section of expanded Crusade things, including agendas, requisitions, battle traits, relics, and badges and stuff. The Crossfire rule I found kind of interesting though. It was a mechanic back from 9th edition that I thought was actually quite a fun bit of game design. The idea is that you just try and draw beads from one side of one enemy unit to another and actually draw a physical line through them. And if you did, you could get various different buffs such as ignoring cover and +1 to wound, plus a few other things. It looks like Games Workshop have decided to re-release an alternative version of that, but put it as a sort of Crusade expansion to the army, as they seem to have been doing with a few other mechanics like that. I noticed that they had a similar sort of Sacred Rites thing for the Sisters of Battle. For the actual mechanics of this one, there's a bit of admin for how you include it in a Crusade army. You'd increase the Crusade points by 2, so your opponents would have also more fun stuff in their list as well. And for that you get to mark one model as a strategist and get a whole bunch of planning points. Then pre-game you can use those planning points and upgrade certain units to have the Crossfire keyword, plus a few other interesting things, potentially suppressing other units for -1 to hit, or a close combat buff against things that are marked as Crossfire targets. And then the core rule is that for any units that have Crossfire, they can essentially coordinate fire against a Crossfire target. If you select 2 units to do so, then they can only shoot at that Crossfire target and they get a +1 to hit. And then if you select 3 units to do so, again they can only fire at that target and they get a +1 to hit and +1 to wound. It seems simple and effective and could be interesting enough. It's interesting to see these sort of mini expansions to the army being done via Crusade point add-ins. Feels like they're trying to add a bunch of other flavourful stuff to the game, but not have the system layered onto the main army rules, with their desire to keep 10th edition fairly streamlined and accessible, at least compared with what it would be if you went back to the multiple layers of overlapping rules that we had in 9th edition. It might be worth looking out for these kind of things, and remember that they exist if you are feeling like 10th edition is a little bit more limited compared with some of the past ones. Could be worth trying to balance these and try these out for a game or two, if you did want something else to mix things up. I feel like it maybe does put a bit of onus on the player though, where if you're not playing Crusade, it could just be kind of hard to get it right and you don't really know whether or not your army's Crossfire rules are being fun and powerful because that's the way they're intended, or because you've just not paid enough of a points cost or whatever else you use to balance it for. Otherwise, we had a model reveal for Monday, plus the hints of a few more. There's an Empire Old World Grandmaster of the Knights Panther here. Seems like they've been quite generous to the Immortals of the Old World, both having this guy and some wizards, and I believe there was one more, all made in Forge World resin. I think it's a pretty fun looking, if kind of ridiculously busy miniature. I must admit it took me a few seconds to actually work out where his head was due to that stylized helm that doesn't look enormously like a helm, though it could partly just be the angle that some of these shots were taken at. Seems like a fun one in any case, and he has a panther skin robe flowing across from his left shoulder. Otherwise, for other minor reveals this week, apparently there's going to be a Warhammer Plus show about designing a codex on Wednesday. I might check that out and report back on it, though I'm not really expecting anything beyond the obvious. I guess we'll see for that one. Otherwise, there should be another Horus Heresy model reveal on Thursday. They've done quite well with the last few, I think, between the Space Wolf, Iron Warrior and Iron Hand ones. And then some sort of surprise reveal on Friday. From what they said on a Sunday article, it sounded like it was something small. I put my guess as a made-to-order box set from one of the previous editions like Black Reach or Dark Imperium. They have been doing quite a few of those at Christmas, though I don't know if the Firstborn Marines and the Sector Imperialis stuff might have been what they're doing this year around. Maybe it'll be something completely different. Otherwise, looking to the future for 40k, we've got the next 8 Grotmas detachments to come. I guess that'll be Leagues of Votan, Black Templars, Blood Angels, Space Wolves, Gene Stealer Cult, Sisters, Tau and World Eaters. It looks like we've now just got the one a day after a few double releases. Then to finish that all off, we'll have model reveals on Christmas Day. It seems that most people are strongly expecting some Emperor's Children given all the hints they've had. Maybe more Eldari or Krieg or something entirely different could be possible though. Some miniature teasers around New Year, and then we've got the first releases of 2025, Guard on the Krieg box, Eldari and their Aspect Warriors, Imperial Knights and probably Chaos around the time, and Emperor's Children sometime after that. Talking of Krieg releases though, I'll just finish up with a little bit of channel news and just wind up by mentioning the channel's January giveaway, which is for the Death Corps of Krieg army set that we've got coming up. This one will follow all the normal rules for giveaways on the channel, and this one will be for 8 winners to get a copy of the box with the 10 Death Riders, Lord Marshal Dreer, Combat Engineers, the Artillery piece, and the Guard Codex and data cards. It should be a fun one in any case, and for this one there'll be 2 equal ways to enter, both of them links down in the video description below. Either you can support the channel on Patreon for any amount, that gives you automatic entry each month, and it's the main thing that supports me here on YouTube too. Or alternatively, you can support via social media and use that to enter completely for free, doing these 3 actions. First, boost the algorithms by subscribing to the YouTube channel and liking the Facebook page. And then to actually enter the draw, a post appears on Facebook on the 1st of January in time for the new year. It'll appear at midnight UK time and be active for just over 24 hours. And to enter, respond to that post with a photo of any 40k mini or imagery, and along with your name and the date handwritten within the same photo. The last bit just to deter Facebook bots and spammers. After that's done, the draw will be done with a random number generator, and it'll be announced on the channel update video on YouTube around the 4th of January. We don't know the exact release date for this one yet, but it'll almost certainly be in January, and the models will be posted out to the winners after I've received my orders of them. In any case, feel free to check out the links in the video description if you'd like to enter for one or the other ways, and there'll be further giveaways of a similar sort of size and scope each month. In any case though, I'll leave that one there for today. Let me know your thoughts as to the terrain releases, the Seraptek construct going, Vallejo things, Crossfire and all the rest. Look forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments. As mentioned, feel free to check out the channel's Patreon page if you'd like to support the channel, or the channel's affiliate discount links as well if you're looking to pick up any Warhammer models in the near future. In any case though, an absolutely massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.